Yes. It's just not a picture. Sorry, just the video.
Fine.
Just what you want to take a picture?
All right, yeah, we're gonna take a picture.
Okay.
Because we have to prove that this happens.
We have to prove that this
Yeah,
happens.
ready?
All right.
Okay.
I'm very bad at
Now that they
selfies,
made me
by the
put
way.
law school expert on Instagram, I need material. Okay.
Oh, good, yeah. All right, so Ann has been doing law school admissions consulting forever, as far as I know.
15 years.
15 years. Wow. Okay. I've been doing this 12 years.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
okay.
Not bad.
Yeah. All right.
Almost legit.
We didn't know that we were just like racing along. Well, you were ahead, but so I always mess up your introduction, but you were in charge of admissions at 2 law schools, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then you left that and started Law School Expert.
Mm-hmm.
Yes. And you've just been helping hundreds of people get into law school
Bazillions.
with all different scores and everything.
Yeah. Almost all
And-
different. I have
yeah.
some limits, but yes.
And all different backgrounds. Yeah.
Yes.
Okay. And so when Ann says this is what you should do, when it comes to getting into law school, it makes sense to listen. You always got to decide what's best for yourself, but it would be foolish not to heed some of this advice, if not all of it, right?
I like that.
Yeah.
Thank you.
It's true for me too. I don't mean to.
Yeah.
You always got to take ownership of your ideas, right?
Yes.
But ultimately, it would be foolish not to listen. So, Ann, thank you for coming
Thanks
all the
for
way
having
from California,
me. Yeah,
just for you guys,
it's true.
and all the online students who will be watching
Awesome.
this. So,
Well,
yeah.
thanks for having me.
Of course, yeah.
I always love coming out here to talk to Ben's classes, and I always do something different for his classes than I do any other time that I speak, which is tear apart personal statements. Usually I just go and I talk law school admissions, and I take you through the timeline, all the things you have to do, and give you tips and pointers. But for you guys, I actually go pretty in depth with personal statements, and I'm glad that you're here. So I will leave time for questions, and I'll ask some questions as we go as well. If you didn't get a copy of each of the 3 handouts, they're in the back. Are the authors, or Alexandra and Evan, are you both here? I know Alexandra's here, Evan? Awesome, nice to meet you. Okay, brave souls, let me tell you. Okay, so actually before we get to your essays, I'm going to talk a little bit about personal statements generally and what I'm looking for in a personal statement. And then we're going to start with sample A and B. Okay, and I apologize for the coffee spillage. If you follow me on Instagram, you'll know I'm a little addicted to coffee, but this was even extreme for me. There's a lot of stuff out there on personal statements, okay? There's a lot of sample essays, and apparently there's this internet thing that has sample essays. And I don't want you reading any of them. As you consider what to write your personal statement about, I want you to consider only yourself, okay? I want you to think about the right voice for you, the right content for you. And I know that sounds really hard, but it's a heck of a lot easier than trying to sound like someone else, okay? And in the end, the number one quality in an impactful personal statement is authenticity, okay? So the more samples you read, the harder it is to find your authentic voice because you think you should sound a certain way. Also, a lot of those personal statement samples you'll find in books, etc., they are outdated. They're from an era from when I applied to law school, 4 years ago, and they're not what law schools are looking for today. You know, we're not looking for an attention-getting story, a narrative creative writing exercise. You really, for most schools, you really only have 2 pages double spaced to get across who you are and why you should be there. But it's not to make a direct case for here's why I should be there, right? It's to be a little more nuanced than that. And one of the things, yes, I have experience making admission decisions for law schools, but a lot of people have experience, anyone who's worked as a director of admissions for a law school. But I think one of the reasons that my clients do so well in the process is because of my approach to personal statements, because I really want your essay to sound like you. And the things I really want to stay away from are anything that sounds like you're bragging, like you're arrogant, and anything that sounds formulaic. All right, so if I can't read your essay and feel like I know you, then it hasn't done its job. But if I read your essay and I remember it for the wrong reasons, that's not good either, right? So it's not about being the most memorable essay in the stack. It's just like I read this and I'm like, yeah, I like this person, this person is who they say they are, this person, oh, now their resume makes sense, or now this part of their background makes sense to me, or oh, that's really interesting, they gleaned this from that experience, but I don't want you killing yourself to try to impress me in a personal statement. Does that make sense? All right, I would like to start by talking about sample essay A. Has everyone read that one? Does anyone have initial impressions of this essay? Like it, didn't like it, anything that stuck out to you? No judgment here, just, yeah.
It was a good story. It didn't quite come across why I lost school.
Okay, good. So just recording for the video is a good story. Didn't really come across why law school. Anything else? Okay, so you all have not watched the online archived version from my presentation to this group in August, because this was the essay that I tore apart then. Okay? I probably shouldn't have given that away yet. Probably should have waited. I'm not good at this. Okay.
There's always next time.
And I want to tell you a little bit about why I tore it apart last time. And I have this person's permission to do this, by the way, in front of you. The first thing I learned about this person was he killed a dog. Doesn't make me like it right off the bat. I'm just saying. And I kept reading the essay going, I don't understand why the dog matters. I don't understand. I kept asking myself when I read this the first time, what is this essay about? He's telling me he lived in Brazil. Okay, got it. And then I thought, okay, can I outline this essay? I cannot outline this essay. It has no movement, no trajectory, right? And I kept thinking, do I like this person? I wasn't actually sure. I kind of thought moving out of the dorms was kind of a not likable thing. Why couldn't he stick to that? And again, my thought was, why is he applying to law school, right? I knew from reading this that this was a bright person if he's there through Fulbright, right? I knew this guy was a rock star. I hadn't seen his resume, right? But I knew, okay, this is no dumb kid, Fulbright scholar, right? So those are the kinds of things that I went through with him sitting right there in August. And he called me a few days later. And I ended up helping him with another essay for his applications, and it's essay B. Now, I was going to hold back and see if anyone could actually tell it was the same person. I want to talk to you about why we made some of the choices we made for essay B, okay, and why we decided to present him this way. So once I got to know this person, he had a pretty impressive resume of being a leader at various things, not just in one aspect of his life, but a lot of aspects of his life. He'd been a student athlete. He was an amazing student, obviously. He became a Fulbright scholar, and then he became promoted within the Fulbright program. And he's currently working for a big firm in DC. I invited him tonight, but he's still working. So there was a lot there to work with, and I didn't want his essay reading like a study abroad essay. I wanted his essay showing that the Fulbright was just one example, and I also knew he had a letter of recommendation from Fulbright Scholar, from the Fulbright Scholar program that he led. So I didn't, and it's on the resume. So I didn't want it taking over his entire application and screaming it from the hilltops. Okay, I wanted him to come across a little more humble, and a little more introspective, which honestly, once I got to know him, those are real things that I felt he was. It wasn't I want you to sound like a humble person. It was very much, I want that side of you to come across. I felt like in his old essay, he was trying to be entertaining, and there was too much going on, and there's one part in the bottom of the first page where he's talking about being butt naked in the shower. These are visuals I don't need. So I wanted to get away from the let me entertain you and be clever side of him to the here's things I learned about leadership that bring me to law school, and I wanted him to work in the part about actual legal experience because I was afraid because it was so recent that it might get a little bit lost on his resume. And because it was so recent, we weren't going to do a letter of rec from there, I think is how we decided it. So that's why we made some of the changes we made. I also think that the second essay is a lot easier to read. Let's see. It just flows a little better. I had to really sit and focus to read essay A. But essay B, I got where he was going. It was easy to follow. At the end of it, I was yeah, this is a kid who's going to contribute to my law school, right? This is a kid who thinks about what he's doing, and I say kid, by the way, and I don't mean it in a demeaning way at all. I just mean, this is a term of endearment for me. This is someone who's going to come and do well wherever he goes, right? He's going to try hard and do well. And so that's why I liked SAB. Does anyone have any questions about that or wonder why I had him do certain things? All on board? Okay. I have another guinea pig in the room. We might come to you later. All right.
Yeah, so do you
Sir.
want to talk about the process at all that helps
I-
you go from A
sure.
to B, like some of the steps that you do?
Yes, although it would be hard to mimic on your own. But here's what I would say. I do have in my book, The Law School Admission Game, I have a brainstorming exercise and some brainstorming questions. And I have all of my clients, whether they like it or not, pretty much answer these brainstorming questions. They don't have to answer all of them, but I want them to write as much as they can until they run out of things to write about in response to them. Because when I work with a client, I do it very much like I want you to err on the side of oversharing with me, because let me be the filter, let me be the curator. When you don't have that luxury, that's fine. You can have other people in your life who you trust be that filter and curator, so long as they don't skew you to try to write a letter of recommendation for yourself, which is often what parents will do, for example. They'll be like, oh, you need to talk about that time that you did this. You know, Mom. So that's one thing you can do. And the brainstorming questions are along the lines of, some are very predictable. What experiences in your life have led you to law? Okay? I would like you to focus answers to that on things since childhood rather than rooting it all in childhood, because often that's the temptation is, I've always wanted to be a lawyer, or my parents are lawyers, or my parents went through a terrible divorce, or my parents' immigration story. So if you're going to start there, just be sure to pull it forward. What other experiences, more recent experiences, have led you to law? Another one is what's something that would surprise me to learn about you? Okay, just something like that I wouldn't know from looking at your resume or letters of recommendation or your transcripts. That could be something like, the reason I had to transfer schools is because I was a recovering alcoholic and I spent that year doing X or Y. Or it could be, what you wouldn't know about me is that I paid my way through school, or I climbed Kilimanjaro last year. I don't know, play with it, see what isn't obvious. The temptation is always to write a personal statement and draw a thread through every single thing you've done that you think is relevant. That's intensely boring and ineffective. That's what your resume's for. And if you're worried that your resume looks scattered, I would expect it to. Like, I don't, very few of us have like perfect trajectories on our resume, I mean, and I wouldn't want that as someone. I want well-rounded people. I want people who've had a chance to explore other careers and realize PR wasn't for them or this wasn't for them. Like, I'd rather that than someone who never even considered the possibility of trying something outside of law, right? I mean, although there's benefits to having law on your resume versus someone who has no law on their resume, I think that people worry about this too much. And I can talk about this more later if it comes up in questions, but I find that most law school applicants worry about totally the wrong things, because they're reading the forums and Reddit and whatever, and they're all telling you to worry about the fact that you have a canceled LSAT or a withdrawn class, or you attended too many institutions, or if you have a minor in possession charge, you're never getting into law school. I mean, you worry about all the things that you can't control at this point in your lives. And when I look at someone, I'm not looking at that. I'm not looking at the parts we can't control. I'm looking at the parts we can control. And the parts we can't control, do we need to explain them, and how do we need to explain them? Usually if they're negative things, that's not for the personal statement. The only reason I would keep in mind a negative thing we're going to have to share in the application when considering a personal statement topic is if I'm trying to counterbalance what we're going to have to discuss. So for example, if there's a long list of arrests or a long list of indiscretions, arrests relating to substance abuse, and we're trying to show maturity and thoughtfulness, then I'm going to take maturity and thoughtfulness as things we want to express in the personal statement. Okay, I'm going to say, what can we find about you that shows focus? Oh, you've worked at the same furniture store for 8 years. You became shift manager there. Okay, look, whatever it is, I'm totally making that up. I've never worked with someone who worked in a furniture store, but I'm just saying, I look for what shows dedication, focus, and maturity, and that's what we would write about in the personal statement. So also, if you have negatives you're really worried about, think about the traits that would counterbalance them to kind of allay those fears. Does that make sense? I think some of these things are going to come up when we talk about these two essays a bit, okay? Alexandra, I'm going to start with you. Who's your mom, and what year did you graduate from University of Miami School of Law?
Excellent question. I have
Because
a little to know memory, but
it's very
she went
possible.
when she was older. She worked
Okay.
at like cancer research first,
Okay.
so she was like a science person.
Okay, I was just wondering if she was a classmate of mine, like 25 odd years ago.
She took a class when Elizabeth Warren used to teach there.
Okay, it's possible.
I think it
So,
was-
I just thought it was funny that
Yeah.
both of these essays had Miami ties, and one of them is talking about someone who went to University of Miami School of Law, probably guessing around the time that I was there. So, since you weren't there yet. So anyway, little trivia. I think that what you've written here, Alexander, is a good first draft brainstorming. I didn't really learn anything about you in it. And I felt that the first paragraph was very much like cocktail party conversation and not really truly relevant. And so for the video purpose, I'm just going to explain it a little bit. That the essay starts with the fact that she was in utero when her mom was going to law school. And then it goes on to, the essay goes on to talk about your experiences with your two younger brothers who were both diagnosed as autistic. And I have no doubt that this experience was extremely formative in your life. But to me, it didn't pull through to teach me about you or about why you want to go to law school. I felt, I outlined this. And so, okay, start with mom's a lawyer. Then introduce your siblings. That's number 3. And then you went to lawyers should be aware of these issues. Therefore, you'll bring this perspective to law school. But I didn't learn anything that you did that got you involved. I mean, you say you attended things, but I don't see, for example, like you took leadership to start a campus organization to create awareness for autistic students or support for autistic students, right? I don't see anything above and beyond that you did with respect to that. And you kind of throw in like my extensive background working with and riding horses, but it kind of came in out of nowhere, okay? So I would say I want you to work on the thing that you're most of all tested on in law school is issue spotting, right? Taking a story and deciding which parts of it are important. It is the most important thing you're doing in this exercise of drafting your personal statement is deciding what's important to share about you. And I'm not sure that the two things you've shared in this are really what's important about you. So I'm going to challenge you to think about that. So I want to give you a juxtaposition that I have a client this year who does base her personal statement on partially on struggles that her family had because of her brother's learning difficulties. But she did a senior thesis on how college campuses can better meet the needs of these students and talked about how she changed school policies based on that. It was, you see, it's a different thing. So those are my comments for you. Did you have any questions for me?
So just try to bring in more, I guess, about stuff I've actually done with that, not just explaining
if
what
that
they
fits
have,
for you.
I guess.
Yeah, if it fits for you to try to bring in more that you've already done with this.
Mm-hmm.
If that feels like a reach and doesn't feel authentic, I would challenge you to try some other topics. Okay, and see what you feel you can write the most about that really shows best who you are. And the other thing, if you're going to consider writing about your experiences as a big sister and some sacrifices you made, it could be in a diversity statement, but the problem is it's not going to end up being that much about you. It's going to be more about them. And I don't know that it reflects well on you to sound like you're complaining about waiting in doctor's offices and things. So most of us have challenges somewhere in our family. And so you have to really think about whether what you're writing about rises to the level of really impacting your life that makes it worthwhile. Okay? Okay. Not so bad, right? Not so bad. We're okay. I'm still standing. I was much harder on my sample A, sample B person. Okay. Evan, are you planning to write a diversity statement for law school?
Yeah.
You don't have to answer this in front of the group, but when I was reading this essay, I thought, what does she mean? Quote, I myself am a product of that cycle, and I cannot change the circumstances I was born into. And yeah, I think those are the two best examples. I was like, what is she not saying here? Those might be the what's underneath that might be the most important part of the essay. If I were working with you, that's where I would dig. okay? I think that there's definitely potential here for a personal statement. You have to be careful because things like City Year, Teach for America is something that the law schools read about a lot. This is an easier sell for law school than TFA because of the issues that you're working with. I think that I would challenge you to focus a little bit more here on what you actually did rather than City Year's function, okay, and purpose, okay? So rather than use it to educate me that here's what City Year does, more here's what I was trying to tackle, here are my successes and failures, here's what I learned from those. Kind of something that forces you to be a little more introspective and personal, because you have some realizations that are quite good in here, but there's not quite enough personal pronouns in here referring to yourself. So what that shows me is you're not really talking about yourself. It's almost balanced too much about the programs. And also I would just say I would be a little more specific when you say you took a job that would have provided an excellent stepping stone to a position on Capitol Hill. That confused me because you don't refer to what that job was. And so I'm reading this going, wait, we're talking about 2 years in City Year and Miami, and then we're going to talk about a job on Capitol Hill, and I was just, I would work on clarifying, okay? One thing that comes up a lot is idealism in personal statements. Idealism about what you can really do with a law degree, right? So there's a lot of, I'm going to correct injustices and change policies and things, and yes, but policy making isn't really like the first thing you do when you get out of law school, right? So, and if you haven't had experience with policy making, then it can sound a little naive. So you want to think about what lawyers do, right? And so one thing that you did at the end, even though you got idealistic at the end, is you mentioned kind of specific things that you would do. You know, advocate for equal justice education, representing youth of color disproportionately impacted by the justice system. Great. That the specifics are important because a lot of people write kind of generalization platitudes like, with a law degree, I don't want to hear about making a difference or changing the world. Please don't use those words anywhere in your applications, even if you mean them, because I'm as idealistic as they come. But you have to sell it, and the way to sell it is to show you've done your research. Like, you don't have to be so specific as to say, okay, this person on LinkedIn does what I want to do one day, but it does help to kind of look into that a little bit if you're writing this kind of personal statement where you're saying, you know, this is what I want to do. Or you could say, I always knew I wanted to go into law, but I did this to learn about how these laws impact students today, right? And so that when I'm out there doing it, I know the real world implications of what I'm doing. And that is like, oh, okay, right? Any questions for me about any of that?
No, that was actually, that was feedback that I'd gotten was, even in earlier drafts, it wasn't as personal as it could have been, and I guess what I struggle with is talking about myself in these experiences, but also not using my students' stories in a way that is not my story to tell.
Correct. So that is a common trap, is to say, oh, when I went to the home of poor Joe, and then his mom told me they had to move because of this, and they'd be out of my district, and poor Joe. Yeah, no, we don't want that, but we do want, like, something that shows the things that frustrated you or the things that, you know, and it's perfectly okay to write an essay that admits that whatever job you're in is limited and it's frustrating, right? I think we've all felt that at points in our lives, right? So it's okay to attack that head on and be like, as much as I loved working with this and that and helping people through these things, these were the limitations of my position. And that's totally fine. You can even say, I went in idealistic, or I went in my eyes wide open, or with this or with that, or I knew my end goal would be wanting to do this, but now I feel more equipped because. And I'm not saying any of those conclusions are appropriate for you or saying to you, this is your conclusion, but I'm just saying be open to whatever is true for you and then guide the essay that way. But I do want to get a sense of who you are, and I do want people to be careful about putting in overly broad statements like the ones I read aloud from Evan's essay that are going to make the reader go, wait, what's she talking about here? Is there something I should know about Evan that she's not sharing with me? And if there's not, then you should not have statements like that in your essay that lead people to believe that there's, you know what I mean? So I have a current client who's a TFA person who did a great job of incorporating her own story with her students' experience and how, and it wasn't like a formulated paragraph by paragraph, but it kind of showed when a certain issue came up in the classroom, how she went through something similar and how, you know, like there's a way to do it. So, or it could, I mean, there's any number of ways to do it. That's the beauty of writing, and that's also why this is so overwhelming and daunting, right? Because there's any number of right ways. So I think you're doing the right thing by asking people, and it sounds like they're giving you good feedback. So good. All right. I'm going to put these away. Anyone have any comments or questions so far? Yes.
So I guess what are you supposed to do then if you have like an area of law that you're interested in but your resume doesn't really connect to it at all? So
Yeah.
like if you're interested in like religious liberty law, because that's like pretty trendy right now, and but you've really never done anything towards that other than just saying like, oh, like I found this kind of interesting.
Yeah.
Like maybe you went to like a seminar, but you know
Sure.
you never like actually volunteered for any, you know, stuff like that. So like how would you still be able to like write about it?
Sure, I'm going to paraphrase that for the video. So if you have an interest in an area of law but nothing on your resume kind of demonstrates it, but also it's not something you've actually done a lot in, it's just something that interests you, how might that come into play in your personal statement, basically, right? So I have a few different answers to this question. If it's something you've seriously spent a lot of time thinking about, researching, and getting involved in just ways that aren't on your resume, like you have gone to several lectures on this, and you've got a stack of books on your nightstand that you've been reading, and this is like a real true motivation for you to go to law school, fair game for your essay. And this is what I mean by what's something that would surprise me to learn about you. Okay, even though I've been working in corporate law, here's ta-da, right? However, if it's just an interest and you don't know that much about it, and you're not really sure if it's something you want to pursue, or it's just one of the things that interest you, I wouldn't make it a topic in your personal statement. If you have a number of things you're interested in and you're kind of putting yourself out there as this kind of Renaissance person with a number of interests, you could kind of work in it and say, you know, I'm interested in this, and I'm interested in that, I'm interested in this, and I'm interested in that. All of these things I can explore more in law school, and that's kind of what drives me, is if all of these roads lead me to law school, I can't be wrong, right? If I'm interested in 5 different things and they all relate to this. So that's okay too. But I would just say, like, if it's just a passing interest, don't try to pass it off as being more than it is. You know, like, oh, this will sound really good because this is trendy right now, so I'm going to write about this. Like that, we don't want to do that. Now, there are a couple of law schools where it's going to be an especially good fit. And so sometimes people will say, well, for this law school, should I write a different personal statement because they have this great program in this or that? And generally my answer is no, we don't change who we are for the law school. They decide we're a good fit or not, right? And also they can't, you know, a law school can't and won't and doesn't want an entire class of people all who want to do intellectual property law or all who want to do whatever, right? Even if that's what they're known for. So sometimes people ask me, well, this school's really known for entertainment law, so should I tell them that's what I want to do? I'm like, it's so counterintuitive. It's like they have plenty of those people. Be the other person, be the criminal law person, be this person, you know? So I generally believe, like, be who you are and the right topic will follow. Yes?
So you recommend to start the essay by like the childhood until the current situation, or you prefer to go with the story? That's why you want to go to law school and just give the support like the story.
Sure. So the question is basically, how do we start personal statements? Do we start with why I want to go to law school? Do we start somewhere? Any of the above. Okay. Sometimes I like a really straightforward, these are the experiences that have led me to law school. And sometimes you can start at the beginning, and sometimes you can start at the end and say, I never thought I'd be where I am today, and here's how I got here, and here's why. You know, there's no one formulaic answer. The only thing I would say is kind of formulaic is I want something about you in the first sentence. I want to learn something about you, okay? So there should be a personal pronoun in the first sentence, okay? Sometimes people talk about journeys and, oh, my journey to law school. Well, every single person applying to law school has had a journey to law school. Like, we really don't need to say these things. Like, every word counts, right? So not on a first draft or a second draft or a third draft, but when you're looking at the draft that you're actually going to send to law schools, every word counts. Like, really look at each word, at each sentence. What is this adding, right? I would rather an essay be brief than filled with pretty words. Like, you saw the difference between sample essay A and B. Like, I'm sure he thought sample A was a beautifully written essay. You know what I mean? It's complicated and it's got all kinds of italics and parentheses and punctuation and dashes, but it's hard to follow, right? Whereas the second one is like clean, easy to read, like simple. This is how lawyers write, right? Lawyers don't write creative writing pieces. So you don't have to spend a lot of time setting a scene. Comments, questions?
I have a question. So it seems, at least based off these samples and what people talk about a lot, there's a lot of times people say, a lot of people write essays about why they want to go to law school with the reason being something about changing the world or making a difference. And as one of those people, is there any cause for concern that that's played out or, hackneyed at this point?
Great question. The question is basically, is it played out, hackneyed, overdone if I say I want to go to law school to basically change the world, public interest, social action, that kind of thing? No, if this is true for you, you do it, okay? We need people who go on to go to law school for these things. I'm not at all jaded about, I'm ridiculously thankful for it. I'm thrilled. I want you to do in your life what you think you want to do now. Like, I want you to do it. I worry more about the people who say it without backing it up. So the people who, my favorite is when people write why this school essays, which we can talk about that too in a second if you want. But there, some schools have, like, why do you want to come to our school? And they're like, oh, your great public service pro bono program. And I'm looking at their resume like, because you volunteered when, ever? Oh, through your fraternity. Oh. So I would say if you have it to back up, of course you should write about it. But the thing is, you'll be writing about it in terms that are credible and not in terms of I want to change the world. But this distinct issue of LGBT asylum or cases or whatever your discrete areas of concern are, voting rights, whatever, you'll be able to write about that. You won't have to use the words, I want to go to law school because I want to make a difference. Because your essay will spell it out, right? Yes?
What would be your advice on how to start when you have two ideas that are just so polar opposites? I could go in like two very different directions and I have no idea which one to do. I don't think that they mix.
Okay.
So
I like that question. So the question is, I have two different ideas that are really unrelated, can't be combined. How do I decide between them, basically? So many times when I give this lecture, I actually start by saying, on any given day, I could write about myself and a personal statement in a totally different way. I think I did this with Ben and Nathan in October in Chicago, right? I made a list on the board. I could write about the half marathon I just ran. I could write about the fact that I knit, being a mom, this starting a business, blah, blah, blah. Like, any given day, like, none of us are so one-dimensional, we have nothing to write about. Like, I know it feels like you don't have anything to write about, but you do. I would pull together a committee of trusted advisors, okay? And ask them what they think. I would test the stories for recency, okay? Sometimes the question is, do I tell a story like that happened to me a long time ago or something I did a long time ago because it helped me when I got into college or it helped me with this, or something else is more recent? And so for me, that's the easier call, is something that's you've been committed to more recently or more extensively. But I would get together a committee of people you trust. Get your friends together and say, when you read this, what do you think about me? And when you read this, what do you think about me? Which one do you think sounds more like me? Which do you think, and honestly, it's March and you're not applying to law school in April, so you've got 6 months ahead of you, minimum. Put them both aside. Don't look at them for a while. Come back to it in a month or 2 or 3. You have plenty of time. I find that even at my advanced age, we grow and we change constantly, right? My opinions are not 100% what they were 8 weeks ago, 16 weeks ago, 32 weeks ago, etc. Like, we are constantly growing and changing. It's not saying I'm like changing this way, like total polar opposites all that time, but I mean, if we're living and doing it right, we're constantly growing and changing, right? It is possible that your personal statement topic has not happened to you yet. So put them aside for a few months. Don't look at it, don't think about it. Worry about the LSAT, worry about your letters of rec. Go on a nice vacation, have fun. Okay, read a good book. And come back to this in July. And I know you're like, Ann, July, that'll only give me 7 weeks, you know. It's plenty of time. It's plenty of time. But there's no reason for you to commit yet. And it might be you come up with a third story or a fourth story or what have you. Or your best friend is like, I totally hate this. That just doesn't sound like you. You know, like, just, this is a good problem to have. The other thing I would say is if you really want to fully develop them into 2 different essays, you might find that one ends up working for an optional essay. So for example, I had a client do a brainstorming for me recently, and one of the things that we're talking about is did she do a brainstorming or I saw it on her resume. I saw it on her resume that she started early in college years as college Republican, and then she later was an intern for a Democratic senator. Senator is Democrat, and I was like, talk to me about this. This is kind of cool. And we talked about it. She's like, I was actually thinking it might be a personal statement topic. So I think of a better personal statement topic, but for example, Georgetown this year asked in an optional essay, what's one thing that you've, that's the most important thing you've ever changed your mind about? Okay, that's kind of cool, right? I'm not saying they're going to ask again next year and she'll be able to use it, but hang on to all of your ideas. They may come in handy when you least expect it. I'm happy to take questions that aren't about personal statements too. Yes?
How do you decide from whom you should get a personal recommendation letter? Because I'm out of school for a few years, and my first employer isn't someone I necessarily have a great relationship with anymore.
Okay, the question is how to decide whom to ask for letters of recommendation, especially when you're out of school and your first employer is not a great person to ask for whatever reason. Great. So again, this is kind of a question where timing's in our favor because we still have some time. So for those individuals, if we can't ask current employer because we don't want to alert them, and we can't ask, there's not really a previous employer that would be good, and there's no professor, people do start to panic. I would look to volunteer opportunity if you don't already have one. To get involved with. I know that can be really hard if you're working a lot of hours to like add something else in, but you know, it could be a Saturday tax clinic or I don't know, an immigration workshop you teach, or I don't know, find something that you care about. It could be that you need to mine, it could be like a colleague from that firm or business you worked for that is no longer there that you could look up and find. It could be that your professors actually do remember you more than you think, and you can reach out and try. So the idea is think of everyone, ask everyone, and see what pans out, okay? It's definitely a tough situation. I get it. Sometimes people also will take like a class over the summer, like audit a class or something just to get a letter of rec off of that. I don't know, play with it, but I've never seen anyone who couldn't find anyone to write them a letter. Obviously we want the letters to be as strong as possible, but sometimes this is the hardest part. So just say, there's some law schools for which you're going to need like bang up amazing letters of rec, like Yale or what have you. But if that's not like the category you're going for, it's a little less important. I just put that on video. I'm going to get reamed for that. But yes?
I have a question about letters of rec too.
Okay.
So I've already had 2 submitted last summer.
Okay.
But I might not be applying this fall. I might wait until next fall. Is that
I'm really glad you asked that.
long?
So the question is, I submitted letters thinking I'd be applying last year, and really I'm not going to apply to next year, and the letters are just sitting there. Are they too old? They're fine. Totally fine. They don't need to be updated unless those people have more things to say about you now, like you've done more classes with them or worked for them more. But otherwise, the letters are perfectly fine how they are. I don't care what the date is at the top.
Okay, I have another question.
Sure.
You mentioned that in the first, in SAA, he worked for Big Law and he was a paralegal, but you didn't get a letter of rec from his.
I don't think we did, but I don't remember. But
Was the time frame too short? Because I'm a paralegal
it
right now.
could be the time frame was too short. It could be he just had so many people who were really writing good letters, because this was someone who was an athlete in college, had like a very high GPA in college, had a Fulbright. So I just think when I was saying what's most important about you, I thought I ranked them in that order. I don't think it was a question of he couldn't get a letter of rec. I just didn't prioritize it because it could have been because he hadn't been there long. But to be honest, I don't remember conversation because it was probably 8 or 9 months ago.
Okay.
But I think in this particular case, this is someone who had the luxury of a lot of people who could write very good letters.
What would be a time frame that would be too short?
Well, how long have you been at your job?
6 months.
And
I'm planning on being there for 3 years.
You're planning on being there for 3 years.
Yeah.
So you're not going to go to law school for 2 more years.
Hopefully.
Okay, so don't worry about it yet.
Okay.
Don't ask yet.
Yeah.
And so the letters you already have on file will be like 4 or 5 years old.
They will. So I got them this summer, and I'm planning on applying next fall. So I guess when I submit my application, they'll be 2 years old.
Okay, and when you submit your applications, you'll have been at your job a
2
year
years.
and 4 months.
No, just 2 years.
2 years.
Yeah.
Then I would say I would ask for those letters of rec from your current employer, basically the last possible moment. Like ask them the summer right before you apply,
Oh.
like a month before you apply.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Okay. Thank you.
I just
Yes.
want to add on to that because seem like you say it's possible to get a recommendation letter from the employer.
Mm-hmm.
Because before I heard that it's better to get from a professor from school, and well, me and many people like out of school for a while, and you think it's okay to get from employer?
It's always okay to get a letter of rec from an employer if you've been out of school, of course. Yes, it's better than okay.
How do you sort of balance the need for a recommender who may have a high sort of profile with a recommender who knows you a bit better?
That's a great question. How do you balance choosing between someone who has an impressive title, let's say, versus someone who knows you better? Okay, so first of all, you can ask for all of the letters and store them at LSEC, and then decide later which ones to use, and no one will ever know if you used it or not. That's new and fun, and I like that. It also makes it easier to answer that question. Second, how would I prioritize those letters? I want the person who's actually supervised your work or your academic study every single time over wanting the person who seems impressive, okay? I don't want the college president writing you a letter of rec if they knew your grandfather and so they had coffee with you once a year or whatever. I want the college president writing that letter of rec if you took a seminar with her or him, or if you or were student government president, right? But otherwise, I don't want that person. That's not the person who can best speak to the law schools about you. Sometimes we have connections, not we have connections with people who are important in the law school world, right? Like someone who's a big alumni who gives a lot of money to that school or what have you. The way to work with that person, if they didn't personally supervise you doing something meaningful, isn't a letter of rec. It's a behind the door chat. It's a picking up the phone kind of a thing, calling the dean of the law school on your behalf. It is not a letter of recommendation. Got about 8 more minutes, so yes.
So how do you also then balance, I guess, academic recommendations and personal ones about I'm an athlete too, and so I have coaches that would write for me, or just volunteer situations that would write for me, and then on the same the academic side. So how do you, I guess, pick which of those are more important?
So law schools will always default to wanting academic letters of recommendation because that's someone who can state that you can handle law school academic rigor. If you've been out of school for a few years, we want to mix that in with who you are as a professional, if that's applicable to what you've been doing the last few years. It's not always, okay? In terms of coaches, I would say maybe one coach and or one advisor for something, but it's got to be a really good letter. The fact that you did athletics is awesome, and that's the fact that you gave me this essay and you were a college athlete kind of makes me mad.
A good one though. So.
No, seriously, athletics in college, and you wrote this. Just saying, okay? Athletics in college is something that law schools prize a lot because it's basically like having a full-time job and going to school. So if it doesn't come up in other areas of your application enough, that's your personal statement. If it's something that doesn't come up because your personal statement's about something else, then a letter of rec can do it. But I don't just want a letter of rec that talks about your time commitment. I only want the letter of rec if it's going to go above and beyond. Like, talk about a significant obstacle you overcame, or how you were a leader on the team, or something like that. Yes.
So I have a professor who was also the rabbi at this school, and I took his class, but I also did like special study with him. Is it bad to get like a religious person to write a letter?
So the question is it bad to get a religious person to write a letter if they taught a class and I did special studies with? Of course it's not bad. It's not bad. Of course not. That's the person who is qualified to teach the class. He went above and beyond and did intensive work. No, it's a great person to ask. Yeah. Okay. I'll take one more question. Then what I'll do is I'll like hang out for like 5 minutes. So if anyone wants to ask anything more personal, you can. Anything anyone wants to ask for the benefit of everyone, or something you'd like me to touch on that I haven't already?
Let's say, well, what if like someone who got not outstanding like GPA or the outside, it's a bit off to put that in a. For me, like I'm from an engineering background, and my GPA is not like as good as like some other like major. So, and should it be better to put that in a personal statement, or just an option statement, or something else?
So your personal statement is not the time to explain why your GPA isn't high. The personal statement is the time to put forward what's the best about you. So it would be about your career as an engineer, If there's really a problem with your grades that you need to explain, that would go in something called an addendum. That's separate. We haven't talked about that today, but I have a lot about that in my book. The Law School Admission Game. Okay. You can check that out on Amazon. Cheesy. Okay, so, or Ben has a stack probably in his office for free. It's also free on Kindle Unlimited and on Spotify as an audiobook. Just put that out there. But I think that question would be best answered by some of what I have in there. But generally, things we want to explain to give context to our applications, we put in the addendum. Okay, if it's simply my classes were harder than the political science classes, law schools know that. If there was like a particular year or term that went poorly and there's a reason and you want to express that in an application, it would go in the addendum. Okay, so just to close up, so I haven't made everyone completely paranoid, it is absolutely possible, and you will, write a beautiful law school personal statement. Okay. This might really frustrate you for a while. What I don't want you to do is just pump one out and say, to hell with it, I'm done. Okay? You have the benefit of time. We are sitting here in March. And if any of you think you're applying to law school in the next 2 weeks, please let me dissuade you from that plan. Okay? You're applying in the fall or beyond. Take time with this. Take time with the brainstorming. Don't just sit down, commit, and then just polish whatever you write in the first seating. Okay? This really is important. Now, is a personal statement going to be what makes the difference if a school never, ever, ever takes anyone with your LSAT and GPA? No. Personal statement's not going to help. No. But if there's a chance, this is where the chance gets made. This is your interview. Okay? So I say that not to put pressure on you, but just I think that sometimes the things that most overwhelm us in life, we sometimes just want to get through as quickly as possible and say we did. But the personal statement is a marathon and not a sprint. Okay? First thing you write isn't going to get you there. You got to keep building, keep working. Be introspective, challenge yourself, because at the end of this exercise, if you can't write what experiences in your life have led you to law, don't go to law school. And I'll just end the essay on don't go to law school. No, I'm kidding. But I will kind of tie things up there. And I just want to say this is the beginning of a pretty exciting thing. Like, remember that getting into law school is not the end goal, right? The end goal is whatever your career goal is. So the reason I actually have to have a hard stop at 7:30 tonight is I have the privilege of having dinner with a former client and her husband and another former client, and I just know they're all going to get along, so I just push them all together. And one of them is who introduced me to you, Zoe, okay, and her husband. And
Holy cow, that's a long time ago.
Yes, a long time ago. She's graduated from Stanford like 3 years ago. And but anyway, that's a whole other story. But I would just say this, like, these two former clients that I'm meeting tonight are both actually doing what they set out to do with their law degrees. Okay, one went to Stanford Law, one went to Georgetown. they're actually doing what they told me, one of them 5 years ago and one of them 9 years ago, like what they said they were going to do. And that's, I think, rare. I think that's really, really rare. But I think it's inspirational to say that whatever's driving you now can happen. You just have to get yourself there. But it's not about getting into law school. It's not about being able to brag that you got into a certain law school. This is what you have to do to get to where you want to be. And if you look at it that way, it should take some pressure off, because it's not about, oh, look at me, I got into this school, or is this school like me, am I good enough for this, whatever. It's about, you can get to where you want to go any number of ways. There's not just one school that gets you there, okay? And I'll just leave you with that. I think that this is an exciting time. Take time, figure out who you are, what you want to do, and if you do that, your personal statement will come out great. I did just start a ridiculously embarrassing Instagram for Law School Expert, where I post videos where I'm not wearing makeup. And my website's lawschoolexpert.com, and I have a contact form there. If you have questions for me, you can also fill out the contact form. Let me know, hey Ann, I was at Ben's class, I have these questions, and thanks for having me.